Welcome to the Academic Framework Module 1D. Our topic for today is genre, argument, or persuasive text. But before we begin, let's take a look at the traditional lands on which we live. I feel so grateful to be able to live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Coquitlam people. But where does persuasive text fit in on our academic framework for literacy? Let's take a look at our shelter graphic to find out. We always begin with getting to know our students' home language, prior schooling, and experiences. We build on that with background knowledge and vocabulary. And don't forget the foundational piece of oral language, super important for all our students. Our three pillars are register, grammar, and genre. And finally, assessment is the roof, but really assessment occurs throughout. It's always important to share your learning intentions with your students. We have posted the learning intentions from the perspective of a student. These were taken directly from the language arts curriculum. Pause the video for a moment and give them a read. Let us begin by scaffolding the learning. So even though the topic for today is persuasive text, we don't want to just jump into persuasive text without tapping into background knowledge and building vocabulary first. A great way to do this might be to use the PWIM model, or Picture Word Induction model. Basically, what we would do is we would show the picture and ask students a prompting question, like, what do you see in the picture? The beauty of this activity is that the differentiation is built in. Students with limited vocabulary would still be able to participate because they might see the color white or the color brown. Whereas a student who has a larger vocabulary might be able to contribute something like, I see whipped cream. We can also provide the students with sentence frames. I see, and then blank space. So the beauty is we could build this into our persuasive text by asking the simple question, cake or ice cream? For our ice cream or cake question, depending on whether your students are ready, we might be able to build more of those descriptive words in. But this would depend on the needs of your students, the strengths, and the stretches. This graphic organizer, taken from Adrian Gear's nonfiction writing power, has students think about their opinion about various subjects. What is the best color? What is the worst video game? You could have some lively discussions around this and possibly some debate. Students' engagement levels will be high because they are interested in the topics. Now let's take this idea of best and worst one step further. Let's take, for example, the best pet. It's not enough to just say the best pet is a gecko. We need to talk about why, what makes the gecko a good pet. And we can categorize some of these things in terms of appearance, size, intelligence, companionship. Next, we can brainstorm some descriptive words with our students. What are some descriptive words that we can use to describe the gecko? Adorable, soft, cuddly, cute? Certainly, those don't all apply, but the gecko can still be a good pet. At this point, your students might be ready to look at the structure of an argument text. At elementary, we might use the Oreo metaphor, or a graphic organizer, such as the one shown on the slide. Woven throughout this learning sequence We might talk about language features or grammatical considerations. In persuasive text, we tend to use present tense. We have certain connectors, sequence ones in particular. We often use sensing verbs like seems or feel. Modals like could, can, and should. And we often use cause and effect connectors as well. These lessons can be woven in throughout. Here is a possible graphic organizer you could use, taken from Adrian Gear's Nonfiction Writing Power, to address some of the language features that we just talked about. And let's not forget the revision stage. When we think about the structure of a persuasive text, we have an overview, then we have arguments, and then we have a conclusion. And so in Marvelous Mini Lessons, the thought is that we can work on our introduction, our overview, by using the mnemonic AIM for a great opening, which stands for attention grabber, background information, and main point. This is a discrete skill that we can teach our students so that they have exciting overviews. Then in the arguments section, we talk about evidence, use of opinion, use of transitional words, and descriptive words. And in the conclusion, oftentimes we end with a call to action, which makes a great ending. Once again, this is a discrete skill, a type of ending that students can be taught to write. To extend students' learning, one thing that we can do is to deconstruct using a mentor text. Really what we're doing here is we're examining the structure of this type of text along with the language features. Take a moment to pause the video and look at the discrete chunks that typically occur in an argument text. We might have the students further deconstruct the text by actually copying out the different parts of the text and arranging them on a graphic organizer. Or perhaps we photocopy the entire text, mix it up, and ask students to put it in the correct order. We could give them sentence stems, like cell phones should be allowed in schools because. Now we're going to use the skills and knowledge that we learn from deconstructing to construct a text or create a text, but always with scaffolds in place. Let's say we had the topic of someone winning the Nobel Prize. We would want to perhaps scaffold the vocabulary before we moved into a topic such as this. Students would need to know what Nobel Peace Prize means, or what United Nations or nominee might be, before we begin to write. Once we've scaffolded some of the vocabulary and perhaps did some brainstorming around background knowledge using a webbing diagram and/or oral language, we might ask students to then create a text using a graphic organizer such as the one in this slide. Also, if we've had some language feature or grammar lessons, we might have a grammar checklist for students to look at, as well as peer edit each other's work once they are done writing their drafts. Let's take a moment to reflect. Knowing your students' strengths and stretches, how might you teach persuasive writing? Some considerations: deconstructing texts, mentor texts, lessons around discrete skills, and scaffolds and adaptations that you might use. Want to learn more? Find us on YouTube under English Language Learners Hooray! Don't forget to subscribe to find out when we add new videos. Have fun playing with persuasive text.